Hi, this is Chris, and today I will talk about Digitecture, a reference architecture for digital solutions. What you see here is a vending machine at the Las Vegas airport, and it completely changed my view on what could be sold like this. As you can see, you can buy most gadgets like smartphones and tablets, and you can do it 24/7. I was actually tempted to buy an Android phone in the middle of the night just because I could. I even bet that the right side could be upgraded to allow payments directly with a phone or a watch, as Apple showed recently. My point is that with the solid digital platforms, access to the organization's functionality information could be as readily available. So let's start with a few words about me. I've been in the IT industry for 30 years, and more than half of those have been focused on mobile solutions. The last 6 years have been a lot about apps, and for about a year I've been passionate about solutions around the Internet of Things. My current role as a global lead architect for our digital solutions in Society has 3 parts. The first is to work with sales and delivery, and that means I've been involved in building more than 100 apps and APIs. The second part is to package our best practices as intellectual property, and Digitecture is an example of that. The third part is about sharing, and an example is my YouTube channel. And here you can see a frame from one of my videos where I capture sensor data on an Arduino and upload it to the IBM cloud for the Internet of Things. I won't talk much about IoT in this presentation, but make no mistake, the reference architecture I will describe today supports IoT very well. For those of you who cannot stay until the end of the presentation or just want the highlights, let me give you an executive summary. What you see here is my 3 main points for the operational or people side, which is on the left, and the 3 points for the platform or technical side on the right. The first and most important point on the digital operations side is that a digital transformation needs to happen top-down. The executives must both understand and control the change to make it effective. Also, there can be no silos, but instead, cross-functional teams must be created that cover business and technology, as well as development and operations. On the digital platform side, we need to stop building monolithic solutions that solve a single problem and separate the generic and reusable from the specific with APIs, both when we build and when we buy. The last point is that we need to capture and analyze everything that is happening. So why should you bother? And what are some of the reasons for talking about a digital platform? The main reason is that people expect to solve problems immediately in their current context. This topic is well explained in a book from Forrester Research called The Mobile MINDSHIFT that I recommend you read. Here you can see the photo from the cover of the book, which was taken by Michael Sohn for Associated Press during the announcement of the latest Pope Francis in 2013. It shows how all the spectators instinctively wanted to share the moment with their peers, and thereby they already made the mobile mind shift. The consequences of these expectations is that organizations need to respond as quickly, and ideally that should happen automatically. To do this, we need to make the operations as lean as possible by removing all unnecessary work or waiting. Much of the basic theory here comes from how Toyota made their factories more efficient, and what you see here is an overview of the Scale AGILE framework, which is a way to apply AGILE practices to a large organization. This operational transformation is centered around moving from a linear value chain to dynamic ecosystems of value. It becomes critical to monitor and analyze, in short, to make sure you know what is going on. Or as Stefan Olander, the VP of Digital at Nike, says, "Get going, then get better." So with such a lean organization in place that can respond instantly to any need your customers, employees and partners have, or even as you're getting it into place, what can you do with that? One tip is look for problems or worry that people have, because where anxiety lurks, there is often a good opportunity for mobile moments. For example, if you are an insurance company, our recent World Insurance Report shows that less than 30% of customers have had a positive experience. So let's say I'm at the airport without a travel insurance. How about asking me if I want one? Or when I have arrived at the destination, why not ask if something happened, like if I lost my baggage? And if so, help me create a claim, and even better, suggest stores where I can buy some new stuff. I'm working with an airline company right now on a baggage tracking solution, which is about taking away the passenger worry at the baggage claim, when they are wondering if the bag got on the plane, or know that they didn't without waiting for all the bags to pass. What you see here is a commercial for Uber, which is a great example of what taxi can become with the digital platform. And if you haven't tried it, I recommend you do. It's what I would call an mobile moment. In summary, what I have described is what a digital transformation is all about: the customer experience, the digital operations, and new business models. Here you can see an infographic about our book, Leading Digital. And if you thought digital transformation was diffuse, read and you will see it's something very tangible and practical. Please note on the left, the step 10, the question about a digital platform. That is what I will focus on here. So to be clear, the digital platform comes into play after a lot of things have already happened in the organization's digital transformation journey. For example, I assume that the initial steps have already been taken by the client, that they know they need to change top-down, that they have the leadership commitment in place, that they know they need to use new technologies, that they have a digital strategy in place, they have already started their organizational-wide digital transformation program, they have the cross-functional teams in place, like a digital steering committee, and now they're asking, but how do we make this happen across the organization? But before I get into how to do that, let's talk about what a digital platform is. To meet the immediate needs of users, the webs and the apps has to move fast while the legacy systems move slowly. In other words, to allow the touch points to move faster than the backend systems, we need an integration or digital platform. The fact is that most solutions today are monoliths, which means that they solve a problem but are unable to share their functionality with other solutions. The question, therefore, is how to build functionality that can be used in many solutions. The short answer is there is a need for APIs. So look for them both when you buy and when you build solutions. Some important attributes of these services is that they have well-designed service interfaces, and they should make sure that functionality information is available. If some piece is not confirmed to be available on time, a temporary solution should be created that can later be replaced or adapted to use a long-term source when it's available. This way, the touchpoint can move faster than the backend systems, without the classic conflict between the business wanting more faster and the technology people being forced to say no because their systems cannot keep up. The low-end services talk to back-end systems and transform their functionality and information into a common view, often referred to as a master data model. They usually deliver generic data-oriented functionality and can often be generated with a tool. The high-end services implement the generic logic and processes for a business domain, like order handling or booking. They are designed in a generic way and independent of its consumers, so they are not created to meet a specific user scenario. If a consumer is asking for the information about an order, all the information related to that order is returned, like order items, customer, addresses, payment conditions, and so on. Both the low-end and the high-end services are usually created and maintained by a central integration team, not related to any specific project that implement touchpoints. The front-end services provide the touchpoints with functionality and information for specific user scenarios, and this is what we usually call APIs. They use effective protocols and data formats like JSON and only provide the information that is needed. For example, what is needed for a specific screen in an app. They should be built at the same time as the consuming touchpoints to ensure that the functionality is implemented in the right place, and that is on the client or on the server, and will also make it easier to handle changing requirements. The front-end services are usually created by people in the project that implement the touchpoints, but are maintained by the central integration team. Supporting all these services is a framework of common services for security and management. Security services provide things like confidentiality, integrity, authentication, and so on. And management services support both governance and management, like configuration management, and self-service administration should always be the ambition. Okay, so how do we create such a digital platform? Most successful digital transformations happen top-down, so make sure to get the executives on board. If you cannot convince them easily, try harder, because they need to both understand and actively manage the change. There is no other way. Here you can see the Airbnb boardroom in San Francisco, and it was designed after the war room in the 1964 movie Dr. Strangelove by Stanley Kubrick. Then you need to get the people and the processes in place. And this is about defining roles and responsibilities, as well as methods and measurements. Create teams that own the product or service with a mix of people from business, designers, security, testers, and what I started to call developers, which is a combination of developers and system operators. The most important thing when it comes to building the digital platform is probably a dedicated team to own the omnichannel services. And if you cannot build it yourself, as you can see part of here, we have about 50,000 people now in India, and we plan to be about 70,000 in 2 years. The next step is to have a plan, and that plan should have at least 3 parts. It should define the as-is, visualized here by the A, which is what we have today and what we are missing. The plan should then define the to-be, visualized by the B here, which is how things should be. And then the plan should finally also define how to get from as-is to to-be, which is usually called the transition, and represented here by the arrow. When it comes to creating the actual physical platform, you should give the cloud a serious thought, despite policies or fear around security. It's also a good idea to start simple, and rather than wait while you are looking for fancy tools, see how far you can come with basic technologies and the competence you already have in the organization. Here you can see the latest of the Amazon's data centers, which is located in Frankfurt, and that went live in October 2014. This is the kind of place where most digital platforms will live. My next advice is to use a simple process of defining the user scenarios, design the engagement, develop touchpoints and omnichannel services, and deploy while analyzing to learn what works, and then start over again. We call it the DDD cycle, from define, design, develop, and deploy. It's well aligned with what Forrester calls the idea cycle, from which I have borrowed the graphics you see here. So how do you get started? Well, it's actually simpler than you think, and you just have to start somewhere. Choose a touch point, not the most business critical, but something important. Get the basic platform up in the cloud, even if it might have to be deployed on premise later. Release early, as soon as you have a minimum viable product, then update often and iterate while you improve. Here you can see an invoice approval app that we are building for a large client in Sweden. It demonstrates a simple mobile moment that will save them a lot of time and money. Again, get going, then get better. So let me sum up what I have been talking about. So I start with the why, a digital platform. So people have high expectations, organizations need to respond quickly, and with this in place, what can you do? And the what? You need an integration platform because webs and apps move fast while legacy solutions move slowly, and divide it into low-end, high-end, front-end and common services. And then to the how. Get executive support, get organized, get a plan, get a platform, use agile methods to get going, and then get better by measuring. Okay, so that was what I planned to present today, and here are some useful links. The image is one of Google's experiments with an interactive model of our part of the universe, which amaze me as much as the possibilities I see for companies when they embrace digital. And with that, I wish you the best of luck building your digital platform. Thank you.
Okay, so that was the presentation, and now I think we should open up for questions.
Yep, we should. Thank you very much, Chris. A broad overview of what's happening with some nice insights. So anybody who has questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions using audio, or type them up in the little chat window that you can find in your user interface. Maybe you need to click around a bit to find it. I have one question, Chris.
Sure.
You presented in a fairly matter-of-fact way. You say, yeah, you do this, you get some board support, you change this, you need a new team, you change your architecture. All in all, it sounds like you're really departing from everything we did before and starting a new world. Is it impossible to do, hard to do, or relatively easy?
I would say to make it happen on a large, I mean, most of our clients are large organizations. To make it happen on a large scale in an organization takes time. I wouldn't use the word hard, but some may use the word. I think it's more about time and willpower to do it. What I hope is something that got through is that you can start fairly easy. I mean, with the right mindset, you can start somewhere. You can create something basic like the platform. You need to have that in place, and then you can start building from that with your, customer needs on the wall in front of you all the time, thinking about the customers and their needs rather than thinking about what we have, because it's really easy to turn around and see, oh my God, we don't have anything to support this, so let's see what we have and use that. But it's a mistake, I think. Focus on the customers and what they need, take small steps, and it's like eating an elephant. It eventually it will happen, but it will take time.
That is, if you like elephants, maybe. Any other questions out there by the group? People who want to ask something at this point?
Yes, Eric.
Go ahead.
Yes, Eric. This is Thomas. Hi, Chris. Thanks for the overview. I saw some of the presentations already on Theme Park. So this is very informative. I have a question about you were talking about the platform. What is your view on the adoption of API management tooling, like, for example, Apache, Layer 7, Meshery? What do you see? What's the value of the tooling, and when does it come into place?
Are you talking, when you say API manager, are you talking about like MBAS, like mobile backend as a service, or are you talking about API management?
Well, API management, the latter, and because a lot of backend as a service or platform as a service, they do provide kind of management dashboards already in the cloud. But you also have like commercial off-the-shelf products that enterprises can buy and then implement to manage APIs themselves.
Yes, and I think that on API management, I think it's a really good idea. There's a lot of tooling out there. Both IBM and Microsoft, for example, has a great offerings on API management. I think it's a really good idea. I think, as I said, focusing on self-service here is a key. So, I mean, publishing the APIs that you make available is a really good idea, because it makes people being able to use what you are making available.
All right.
Good. Any other questions? I have one more question. You talk about your architecture, which is a layered model in highest abstraction, and then you mentioned cloud. Do you see certain layers naturally ending up in the clouds and others on-premise, or is that completely different realms?
It's a really good question. I think, as I said, I think most people, whatever the background is, should start considering the cloud. To answer, I mean, the short answer to your question is there is actually no problem in deploying parts of this in the cloud and parts on-premise. And this answer becomes even more blurred when you think about all the new cloud offerings. Like, for example, you can have a cloud, a part of Bluemix deployed on your on-premise network. You can have a private cloud in the cloud that is connected through VPN to your network. So, I mean, the cloud and not cloud, I mean, on-premise cloud thing is really blurring now. But I think that, I mean, deploying this architecture with, you know, the different tiers on different sides of the firewall, if you like, is not a big problem. The idea with I haven't talked much about technology, but the idea with the well-defined service interfaces is that if they are using standard or open technology like HTTP, you know, JSON and you know, open protocols, it's really not that difficult to pass firewalls, etc., with between the tiers. So I wouldn't say that it's not very important where you put the different tiers, but still, my ultimate point is that if you can use the cloud, I would suggest you take a serious look at that.
Yep. Okay, very good. All right, I think that leads us to the end of this webinar. Thank you all for attending or for listening to this recording. Both the recording and the presentation will be made available online, so you can look back at your leisure and interact directly with Chris if you'd like to take up some more questions or have additions or changes to suggest. Thank you very much for spending some time with us, and hope to see you again in 2 weeks when we have our next webinar, for which you will receive another invitation for sure. So thank you all, and have a good afternoon.